Yeah, let's talk to Willem Marks live from West Jerusalem. Willem, so we're getting reports from the Israeli military saying they're now in full control of the Gaza border. What more can you tell us?
So what Mohammed was just talking about, the idea there are still individual fighters left inside Israeli territory, that is something that the military has acknowledged. But what they've been saying in the last hour or so, Darren, is that they have now got control of the border. There have been no more people traveling from Gaza into Israel over the last 24 hours. You'll remember, of course, there were large numbers of locations across that barrier fence Hamas breached on Saturday in order to launch their attacks. In the time from then until now, we've seen drones and tanks being used by the Israeli military to target people and vehicles approaching those breaches in the fence. They've now started to mine the areas around those breaches and say they have stopped any infiltrators over the last 24 hours.
Willem, let's talk about some of the politics, if we can, because Prime Minister Netanyahu has been talking about stepping up Israel's response, and so far, Israelis seem to be united behind him, despite their big political differences.
Yeah, those political differences are going to be very challenging for the government here in Israel. Mr. Netanyahu has a narrow majority inside the parliament, the Knesset. He relies on support from two far-right parties and has members of those parties inside his cabinet. Some of his most high-profile and experienced political opponents who have previously worked with him, this is men like Avigdor Lieberman, Benny Gantz, the former defense minister, as well as Yair Lapid, they've said they would potentially be willing to join what's known as an emergency government, something we often see at times of tension here in Israel, but they've also insisted they will only do so if some of the members of those far-right parties are excluded from security-related decisions inside a special wartime cabinet, Darren.
Willem, just a final thought to you before you go. We've seen several escalations on the northern border with Lebanon. How big a worry is that, then, for Israeli military planners, Willem?
Well, Darren, you can have 300,000 reservists being called up. They have a massive active pool of people they can draw from in the Israeli military. But in terms of having two separate fronts they would have to guard against, that does make it far more challenging for the logistics and the strategy for those military planners. Over the course of the last 24 hours, we have seen artillery traded back and forth between southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah has a presence, and also, of course, the Israeli military. Hezbollah acknowledging 3 of their members have been killed, vowing retaliation. We also had 2 individuals traveling from southern Lebanon into Israeli territory. They were killed by the Israeli army. 6 soldiers wounded, 1 deputy commander killed. So that does really complicate the efforts ahead for the Israeli military if they are fighting on 2 separate fronts.
All right, Willem Marks, live for us there in West Jerusalem. Willem, thank you.